He's probably going to take some questions, and if you have any for him, and maybe talk a little bit about his career. Would you like to do that, Barry?
I can do that. How about some questions? Must have some. Okay.
So are you using your volume now a lot, switch between the rhythm and the lead sound? Do you do that in a live situation, or is that just current conditions?
Well, I'm kind of old school on that. I set it up so that when you turn the guitar down, it gets a cleaner sound, and as you turn it up, it gets more and more dirty. When you're all the way up, you're really cranking it out, rather than using switches to go from different levels. It's kind of old school back before we had pedals. We just went in and turned it to 11, and that's how you had to do it. Anybody else? Sure.
Along those same lines, you're using a guitar with only one pickup. Does that force you to maybe work harder as far as your dynamics?
But, you know, I'm good friends with Jeff Skunk Baxter. I don't know if who Jeff is. He was in Steely Dan and Doobie Brothers. Fantastic player. I do maybe 6 shows a year with him, and he was asking me about that. He says, what's with the guitar with one pickup? I mean, come on, you know. So we were in a music store, and there was a 3-pickup SG, and he says, that guitar is you need more pickups. I said, oh, no. He said, I'm going to buy it for you. So he actually bought me the guitar, and he switched out the pickup, so each pickup can go single coil, double coil, and you go between them. There's like 15 different combinations on it. So we took care of that. But I still love the simplicity of the one pickup. It's, you know, just plug it in and go.
I feel like Gibbons took his neck pickup out of his Telecaster because the same deal. He feels like he wants to work harder with just having the one pickup. So.
Yeah. Great. Anybody else? Oh, come on. Back here.
What inspired you to play guitar?
What's that?
What inspired you to play guitar?
What inspired me? Well, I remember I started when I was just really young, like 11 years old. I actually wanted to start when I was 9, but my parents didn't approve it at that point. I remember listening to rock and roll in my mother's car, sitting in the back seat. Of course, there were no seat belts at that time, so I was standing in the back seat with, you know, Roy Orbison and Elvis especially. And yeah, I'd like to do that. And I remember seeing Elvis on TV, and he had the guitar slung down. I said, wow, that's really cool. I want to play guitar. So that's really what got it into my mind. And I kept at it until when I was 11, they finally said, okay, we give up, we'll get the guitar. And I played literally till my fingers bled, the story, and you know, the rest is history. I had my first band at 13, and Boston, I started when I was early 20s, and by the time I was 25, we had been signed and, you know, sold 1 million records. So it all worked out good. My parents were very relieved when I finally had some success. I was like, oh my God, thank God. Anybody else back here?
Is there any plans for Boston to get back together with the surviving members?
Well, actually, Tom is out touring with Boston right now. He's the only original member. He pretty much gets a different band every time he goes out. He has the rights to the name, so it's whatever he wants it to be. But actually, I'm planning on getting together with Sid Passion, the original drummer of Boston, and Fran Cosmo, who was the lead singer after Brad, and we're putting a band together to go out this fall. So looking forward to getting out there with that. And actually, I'm playing this weekend with Sid on drums and Fran Sheehan, the original bass player. We're doing a show in the Lowell Auditorium for veterans, so looking forward to that. Anybody else here? Oh, come on, you must have some more questions.
Yeah. I've noticed.
No questions from you.
I've always loved the guitar sound on record. I've done some studio work, and I've always found it really difficult to get a good guitar sound in the studio like the ones that you got. I'm just wondering, do you use the same rig all the time?
I'm still using the same equipment I had in '75. You know, if it works, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So yeah, I still use the same, you know, early '70s Marshall gear and Shure 57 mic and maybe another Sennheiser. You know, it's all in the mic placement, and you know, something like how far the mic from the speaker is can make a huge difference. It's just experimentation.
And no effects?
Not really. Usually I'd add the effects later. You know, people ask about the Boston guitar sound and where it came from. You know, Tom and I had a lot of bands that we really liked. You know, if you think about the rhythm sound of the early Bad Company records, that's really what we were looking to get with the rhythm sound in the Boston records. And we were also big Jeff Beck fans. And, you know, Jeff Beck was one of the early people using a wah-wah pedal. What he did, instead of using the wah-wah-wah-wah, he just set it where it was mid-range, and you get that really great mid-rangey tone. And that's really where the lead tone for the Boston.
So what kind of wah-wah pedal was it?
Vox.
Vox.
Vox, yeah. Yes.
What's your favorite song to play live?
Favorite song to play live? Oof, that's a tough one. Obviously, the stuff in the first Boston record, it's timeless. People absolutely love it. No matter, even if you play it badly, they still like it. Of course, More Than Feeling was our first big hit, so you know, love playing that. Yes.
I mean, you guys seem to have, or Boston has a real distinct sound, and I'm wondering if there was like a point at which you guys, is like the song, I mean, was there a specific way you guys worked out the tunes? Because I mean, it's like a real distinct sound. It seems like a lot of successful bands settle into like their own sound.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can speak to?
Well, I mean, it was all trial and error, really. You know, with the multi-track recording, and a lot of the sound of Boston has to do with doing the instruments over many times. I mean, if you listen closely, there's a rhythm guitar on one side, there's a double of that on the other side, then there's a double of that one on this side and a double of that one. So there's like 4 guitars, so you get that swimming kind of thing. So lots and lots of layering. Vocals, I mean, hard to count how many times all the vocals are done. And of course, Brad's pitch was absolutely right on. Never sang a bad note. So he could do something over and over and over again and build it up and get that sound. So I think the layering is probably the most important. And when we went on tour for the first time, you know, people's, how are they going to possibly cover that? Because there were so many parts happening, and we actually had electronic doublers for the guitars and electronic doublers for the voices to try to capture that sound. I thought we did a pretty damn good job, if I'd say so myself.
What do you mean doubler?
Basically, it's a small time delay and a small pitch delay.
Yeah.
So you have the original on one side, and on the other side it's delayed time-wise. And it's if you had 2 people playing the same part, they're never going to play it exactly the same. The time, the pitch is all going to be a little off, and basically that's a way to do it without having 15 people on stage. Yes?
It's more about Tom and you, but how do Tom's influences were as a producer, and were the bands that you, or those producers did, were the bands that the other members of Boston enjoyed also?
Well, some of the bands I mentioned, like Bad Company, loved them, and like I said, we kind of went after that rhythm sound. You know, if you think about the harmony guitar parts, at the time we were getting together, Bachman Turner Overdrive had a couple of songs with those guitar harmonies. So, like all acts all through time, you know, you pick up things from the acts that you like, and you give it your own twist, and it becomes your own. And I think that's been the same for music all the way back to the time of Bach. You know, there was somebody he was playing, and somebody else's, oh yeah, and they'd take his thing and twist it around a little bit, and it was theirs. That's kind of how it's always worked. I was a big Allman Brothers fan. In fact, the very first time that Tom, Brad, and I played together, a friend of mine had a jam, a Sunday afternoon jam session, and we went to it. Tom played Hammond organ, I played guitar, Brad sang, and we did Whipping Post. So yeah, definitely a Allman Brothers fan. Anybody else? Yes.
How was your experience with record companies? Did you enjoy it?
It's funny you should ask, because we're just currently in a suit with the record company. I just got a call from a lawyer yesterday, so not great. I mean, our early days of the band, you know, Tom was recording the record in his basement, and we had a producer who was the face of the thing, but he wasn't actually producing the record. It was just a ruse so Tom could do the record in the basement. So that's kind of how we started our relationship with the record company. And you know, when you're on top and you're selling a lot of records, they love you. But you know, once things start to break down a little bit, they're not much help. And nowadays, I mean, there are virtually no record companies left, and I think they're all basically hanging on by a thread at this point with all the downloading and so forth. I mean, people. With the technology nowadays, you can make a record in your living room, and it can be
MacBook,
as
yeah,
good
on a
quality as
computer.
anything.
GarageBand.
Yeah, and you know, we were probably one of the first garage bands, you know, doing a record in the basement. But nowadays, you can buy the equipment for really short money and do a record in your own house, put it out yourself, promote it yourself, and who needs a record company? You know, that's really the way it's going. Yes?
What type of guitars do you prefer?
I'm sorry, one more time.
What type of like guitars do you prefer?
Oh, I've got a lot of different guitars. Obviously, you know, Gibson is my favorite SG. I've played since, actually, I went to see Cream back in Boston, and Eric Clapton was playing a red SG through a Marshall amplifier, and I said, that's what I gotta have. And I still have the guitar, 68 SG, and it took me a couple more years before I could buy the amplifier, but I still have the Marshall amplifier as well. But I also have, you know, some Stratocasters and, you know, acoustic guitars, 12 strings, love the sound of a 12 string. Basically, you know, whatever fits the song. If the SG doesn't work, I've got plenty of guitars that'll, you know, fit the bill. Yes?
Do you choose to listen to Boston for like pleasure, or do you have to put on
To be honest, I never listened to any of the stuff that I've done in the past. Obviously, Boston's on the radio so much that, you know, I hear that quite a bit. But I don't know. I don't revisit the old records. You know, you got to really look ahead and, you know, be happy with what you did and try to do something better next time. So I know if other artists sit around and listen to their own records, but I don't. Yes? One more time?
What do you listen to now?
Honestly, most of what I listen to is what's currently on the radio. Like most people, I don't really buy a lot of records anymore. And, you know, a song strikes me, I'll go and download that. You know, there are a lot of acts that I like, a lot of acts that, you know, you just sort of like, how did this happen, you know? I mean, there are so many acts with the do. Now it's like a disco all over again. You know, we were the alternative to disco back in the 70s, you know. And it's back. Anybody else? Yes?
Thank you. I mean, I can't tell you how thrilled I am that you were here. But when you started to write, were you all, before you started playing music, were you writing poetry? Were you just interested in what other people were writing?
No, it wasn't until we started recording demos that I really started doing some writing. You know, I wrote several songs back in the early Boston days. Unfortunately, none of them made it on any of the records. But that's really when I first started to apply myself. And then after Boston took off, that's, you know, I got my own studio and really started to do it in earnest. Most of the stuff I've written over the years, I did with Brad Delp. Most of that I wrote the musical parts, usually gave Brad a song that was arranged and ready to go, and he would write the lyrics over it. There's some where I did lyrics and other people did music, but mostly I concentrate on the music part. Not really being a singer, I sing backup, but I'm not a lead singer. So. Yes, back then.
Being as successful as you are now, post-Boston, would you consider going back with the new Boston, wherever they are now?
Well, unfortunately, Tom and I don't have a good relationship, and we've been in so many lawsuits over the years that I don't think that's really a possibility at this point. You know, like I said, he has the rights to the name, and he tours, you know, every few years with whatever band he has together at that point. So I don't see that ever happening, especially with Brad gone. You know, we like I said when we played "Rockin' Away," the song earlier. It was the 30th anniversary of the first Boston record, and it looked as though the original band might get back together. And that's when I went to Brad and said, you know, let's write a song that looks back at the history of the band, and, you know, it's upbeat. And that's how we ended up writing "Rockin' Away." And unfortunately, you know, Brad passed away about a year after that, and the reunion never happened. So. Yeah.
Are there any highlights that, like a favorite show that you guys played that you can?
Oh my gosh, there are so many. Obviously, the bigger venues are the ones that are most memorable. We played the Superdome, we played the Astrodome, we played Anaheim Stadium, we played Stadium in New Jersey, Giant Stadium. So those shows are memorable just because of the scale of it. I remember the show at the Super Bowl. The stage was literally like 4 stories high. And the stairway, you had to walk and walk and walk and walk and walk. And I remember walking to the front of the stage and I looked off, it's like, my God, if I fell off this, I'd be dead. It was so high up. And just the scale of it was just, you know, mind-boggling. Yeah.
Did you guys ever play any shows with your original Leonard Skinner?
Actually, we never did a show with Leonard Skinner, no. And we played with a lot of acts. Our first tour was with Black Sabbath, which is kind of curious. We played with Van Halen, we played with AC/DC. Sammy Hagar was a friend, we played with him for years and years. A lot of different acts. So, something else? Yeah.
Do you ever worry that the classic rock sound might sort of just disappear in the next, couple of years or so?
No. No, actually, I mean, the Boston stuff is going strong, and I was joking to somebody earlier that people used to come up and say, "Oh, I listened to your band when I was in high school. It was great." And then I went to, "Oh, my parents were really into your band." And recently, somebody came up and said, "My grandparents really used to love you guys." So, it's good music. It keeps going. My son recently graduated from college, and when he first went to college, his first few months, he called home. He said, "Dad, everybody's listening to Boston." He was like surprised, like, "Oh my God, you must be famous or something." Anybody else? Yes.
You miss the road at all?
Yes and no. We went out last summer with the band I had last year, opening for Deep Purple, and that was a lot of fun. We did a bus tour, started in Canada, went down the East Coast, Midwest out to the West Coast, and it was a lot of fun. But the work of touring is the travel. I mean, the time you spend on stage playing is great. I mean, that's what we all do it for. It's the travel, it's the work. And if you've been in an airport lately, you know how little fun travel can be. A bus is tough, but if you have to do airports only, so really. Yeah, I'm trying to get your guitar in the airplane. So. I've been pulled in the back room more times than I can tell you.
I know that Boston did extremely well here in the United States. How did you fare in Europe and other continents? I don't know that.
Well, we went and toured in Japan and did really well in Japan. At that time, in the 70s, that was the only place in the East where you could tour. Obviously, you weren't going to China in the 70s or Korea or any of those countries. And we were really well received in Japan. And we did go to Europe for one tour and toured through Europe. But to get that following overseas, you really have to go back over and over again. And the band only went to Europe one time. So I think the real base of the band is the States. Anybody else before we send you off to? Oh.
Straight back.
Somebody's pointing. You're right under the light. Yeah.
That's right. What would be your most important piece of advice for young musicians to develop as a musician and then to handle the music business?
I think the most important thing is just to follow your heart and don't try to go with the trends of whatever's happening at the time. I know record labels, if something's successful, they try to get 6 different acts that do the same thing. I think the reason that Boston did so well is what we were doing was different than everybody else. And at first, that was a detriment. Nobody wanted it. It's like, oh, it's different. But then when it broke through, it was like everybody wanted to be that. So I think you really have to follow your heart. And if it's what you want to do, you think it's right, no matter what anybody else says, that's what you have to do. And business-wise, like I said, nowadays you can really handle the whole thing yourself. I mean, you can do your own record, you can promote your own record through the internet. You don't really have to have a record label or a manager or any of that. And some of the most successful acts out there are doing it all on their own. And it's possible. You can do a record in your bedroom, and you can have a hit with it. It can happen. All right.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks for having me. Great.